What do you think about when you hear the word enlightenment? Does it seem like a lot of fluff to you? Maybe it's something magical or just nonsense? If you have resistance to this word, I'd like to offer you a very basic definition of enlightenment. Think about yourself as a light bulb covered in layers of dust and dirt and spiderwebs, behind a dark lampshade and surrounded by four walls of a room. Looking from the outside in, this light doesn't seem very bright. Looking from the inside of the light bulb, though, you can see 100% of its light. The process of enlightenment just means that we are removing the coverings of this light bulb. Sometimes that means you start by tearing down the walls and then taking off the lampshade and thoroughly cleaning the layers of grime off the light bulb. And it's also important to note that the process of cleaning the light bulb is something that has to happen on a regular basis because dust and dirt and cobwebs naturally accumulate. Meditation is one of the ways to clean this light bulb, but sometimes it's really hard to get to the light bulb itself if we even can't get into the room. This is why in the practice of yoga meditation, there are many steps that precede reaching the meditative state. In the very beginning of this series, I talked about movement and breath work, but I intentionally left out the very first steps that are recommended. That's because it usually takes a somewhat more quiet mind, a more thoughtful state of being, to properly consider these topics. In just a moment, we're going into our 15-minute meditation practice. But to prime that, I want you to consider what you know and how you think about violence and truth. Take a moment to contemplate these two things while you prepare yourself for your meditation practice, moving a little, breathing more deeply, relaxing yourself, preparing to sit for a full 15 minutes. Let's begin now our 15-minute meditation practice. So by now, I hope you're getting a sense of what meditation is about and seeing some of the secondary effects of your practice. These can manifest in many different ways. The more time we spend in meditation, the more we are able to recognize things about ourselves and about the reality that surrounds us. We start to recognize patterns of thinking and behavior, and as the mind becomes more quiet, these patterns of thinking become more and more clear and substantial to the point that we can take specific action to reinforce or rectify what we do or do not want. So ultimately, we can say that enlightenment happens through greater understanding. Our ability to exchange information and to learn and gain vital wisdom is important because it leads us to greater understanding. So I want to share with you my interpretation of two ethical principles that yoga philosophy offers. Those are non-violence and truthfulness. And these are the first two of 10 that we'll cover today. So why emphasize non-violence? The way I see it is that any act of violence, whether physical in form or in thought form, it prevents us from greater understanding. It blocks us on multiple levels. If you think about a violent exchange between two people, they're no longer dialoguing or trying to work out the contention between them. Violence is our last resort when we run out of tools and resources to properly convey the right information. On a more subtle level, when we are violent ourselves, it closes us off to receiving anything because our physiology overrules everything else. Truthfulness goes hand in hand with violence. We use lies to block the flow of information. One of the biggest benefits to truthfulness is that it requires a lot less work than lying and being deceitful. When we are being truthful, we have nothing to hide. Granted, being truthful up front can feel a lot harder. But we all know that in the long run, lying weaves a tangled web where we ensnare ourselves. And then we cast away the trust of others, which makes our lives so much harder. So let me leave you with these two questions. How can you be most open to giving and receiving of information, of learnings, and of wisdom? And in what ways can you be more truthful with yourself?